Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome on today's lecture, Theories of Factor Pricing. This is module 14th of this lecture series. I am Dr. Tilkaraj from Punjab University, Chandigarh. The project name is DTH Swayamprabha. In Theories of Factor Pricing, we study how rent to landlord, wages to laborer, interest to capitalist, and profit to the entrepreneurs are determined. Large number of goods and services are produced in a country every year. In order to produce these goods and services, we need the services of factor of production like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. The price which is paid to these factors for their services called factor pricing. That is wages to laborer, interest to capital, rent to land, and profit to entrepreneur. And the theory of factor pricing is therefore concerned with the determination of prices of these services of different factors of production. So let us discuss in detail about the theory of factor production. And after completion of this module, you will be able to learn what is theory of factor pricing actually. Causes of separate study of factor pricing, marginal productivity theory of pricing, modern theory of factor pricing, derivation of demand curve for a factor of production. So let us define what is theory of factor pricing. The theory of distribution or theory of factor pricing. The factor pricing also known as the theory of distribution. It deals with the determination of the share prices of four factor of production, that is land, labor, capital, and organizations or entrepreneurs. Rent, wages, interest, profit are the rewards for land, labor, capital, entrepreneurs respectively. The payment, the reward made to the land is known as the rent. The payment, the reward paid to the laborer is known as the wages. And we pay capital, after using of the capital we pay, that is interest. And for entrepreneurs, profits. National income is to be shared among these four factor of production, which have contributed to the production of the commodity. If you add rent plus wages plus profit plus interest, that is equal to the national income. The factor pricing means the price paid for the services rendered by the factor of production, but not price of the factor itself. The factor which we are using to produce a commodity, say labor, say capital, and the services rendered by these labor or capital, for example, we paid them for the use of services, that is called the factor pricing, but not as a factor itself. There are two aspects of the price of each factor. One, price aspect. Second, income aspect. two aspects are there. The price aspect, we mean the amount paid by the firm to a factor for its services, that is rent, wages, interest, profit, etc. etc. This constitutes the price of the factor concerned. Whereas the income aspect, the amount received by a factor for its services, that is rent, wages, interest, and profit constitutes its income. The aggregate of income received by the different factors of production is called national income or national product. I have already stated. Rent plus wages plus interest plus profit is equal to the national income. The national income or national product is distributed among these factors of production. And this distribution can be two types. One, personal distribution, and two, functional distribution. The national income or product which is distributed among these factors of production can be two types: personal distribution and functional distribution. Both of these terms are refers to the ways in which income is divided within an economy. Let us discuss what is personal distribution. The personal distribution relates to the forces governing the distribution of income and wealth among the various individuals of a country. The various individuals which are involved in producing a commodity, the forces which governing the distribution of income is called personal distribution. Under the personal distribution, we study the pattern of distribution of national income and the share received by these different classes of factor of production. Personal distribution or the size of distribution of income relates to individual person or their incomes. The way in which that income was acquired often remains the background of the factor pricing. Simply, it refers to the distribution of income among the different individuals, whereas the functional distribution or factor share distribution, functional distribution also known as the factor share distribution. This explains the share of total national income received by each factor of production. How they received the national income, the share of national income is called functional distribution. In simple words, it relates to the distribution of rewards for the services of the factor of production. Reward which we paid for the services like the use of land, labor, capital, entrepreneurs. These factors of production, basically the reward which is distributed among these four factors of production is called functional distribution. It deals with the distribution of income among the four factors of production. I have already stated: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. There are two theories for functional income distribution. One, macro theory of distribution, and second, micro. We have already discussed earlier in an earlier module that what is macro. Macro is that taken from the Greek word. This is a Greek word, macros, M-A-K-R-O-S, which means large, aggregate, whereas micro is small, individual. In macro, we discuss whole of the country, aggregates. total sum. Macro theory of distribution deals with the distribution of national income among the factor of production. National income is the macro concept, whereas individual is the micro. Micro theory distribution of factor pricing concentrated on the individual as compared to the macro theory, which deals with aggregate of national income. It focuses to the distribution of rate of return of factors. Returns of the factor is nothing but the price paid to them for their services rendered to the firms. Now, theory of factor pricing deals with the determination of prices of services of different factors of production, whereas theory of value deals with the determination of price of goods and services. The theory of value determines the price of goods and services, whereas theory of factor pricing deals with the determination of the price of factors of production, that is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. In both theories, prices are determined by the intersection of the demand and supply curves. Demand and supply forces of the market. The market mechanism. Market mechanism means where prices of the commodity or prices of the factor of production is determined through demand and supply forces of the market. Now, therefore, a question arises that why a separate study of factor pricing? Why why a separate study of factor pricing? Means causes of separate study of factor pricing. This is because of the fact that the nature of demand and supply of factor and that of commodities, they are different. The difference in the nature of demand and supply are as follows. Say, there's difference in demand factors and commodities. There are three main differences in the demand for factors and commodities. First one, drive demand, indirect demand. You will not directly consume the factors, but commodity we directly consume. Joint demand, collective demand, dependability. We'll discuss one by one these three. First one is drive demand. Factors demanded to produce commodity to satisfy the consumer demand. The factors, say labor, capital, are demanded to produce the commodities to satisfy the consumer demand. You want something, you want to consume something or produce something, you need the factor of production, say labor or capital. The demand for factor is derived, which is derived from the demand of the of commodities in production of which it is used. For example, you need building, then demand for bricks, cement, iron, etc. is the demand for it is drive demand. You have to pick your luggage. You need a coolie or a labor. That is the drive demand. You will not directly consume the labor, but you need the services of the labor. So drive demand is basically for the use of services of the factor of production. Whereas the demand for commodities, direct demand, directly they satisfy our wants. Joint demand, the demand for factors of production is joint demand. More than one factor is needed jointly to produce the commodity. To produce any commodity, we need more than one factors. Say, if you want to produce a commodity, say shirt or cloth, you need labor as well as capital. You need entrepreneurs. To produce agriculture commodity, you need land, you need labor, you need some capital also. One factor of production alone cannot produce the commodities. As per Cobb-Douglas production function, land and labor are very, very important factor of production. And if you use only one, say land, or capital, the output can be, labor or capital. If you use only one factor, maybe output will be zero. So for factor production, you need both these two important factors, say labor and capital. No doubt there are four factors, but the demand, basically these factor production are jointly, whereas demand for commodity is individual, there is no need, that joint demand in case. For example, one factor, labor alone cannot produce apple. It is the outcome of efforts, land, labor, capital, entrepreneur jointly. Now, dependability. The demand for factors depends upon the marginal productivities. It's very, very important. The demand for factors depends upon their marginal productivities, while the demand for commodities depend upon their marginal utility. The quality in that product which satisfy our wants, value in use of the product, that is the demand for commodities. Whereas here demand for commodity is about that depend upon the marginal productivity, how much they produce, how much they contribute in the production. Now, even difference in the supply of factors and commodities. There are two factors of difference. There are two important two factors of difference between the supply of factors and commodities. Say cost of production. The supply of commodities depends upon its cost of production. Supply of commodities depends upon its cost of production. But the land has no cost of production. Sometimes the factor to calculate the cost of factor is not possible. It's also not possible to estimate the cost of production of labor. Whereas the cost of production of commodities you can easily calculate. According to modern economists, the supply of factor depends upon the opportunity cost, the next best alternative of that commodities. Let us see the relationship between price and supply. Second difference, the relationship between price and supply. There is a positive relationship between price and supply of the commodities we have already studied. Higher the price, higher will be the supply of the commodity. But in case of the factors, supply may be not positive. There's no definite relation between price and supply of factors. If you are due to this, if you pay more and more, say labor to the wages to labor, maybe after some time the supply curve will be backward bending. It will not the positive, showing the positive relationship. The supply curve will be backward bending, means the laborer maybe prefer more labor as compared to the work. So there will be no definite relation between the price and supply of the factor, whereas there is a positive definite relationship between quantity supplied and its price. Thus, due to these differences which we have studied, there is a need for separate theory of factor pricing. Now, next question is that the theories, what are the theories of factor production basically? There are two theories of factor pricing. One is marginal productivity theory of factor production. Factor pricing is very, very important. One, marginal productivity theory of factor pricing, and two is modern theory of factor pricing. Let us discuss in detail what is marginal productivity theory of factor and what is modern theory of factor pricing. Marginal theory of productivity, marginal productivity theory basically, marginal productivity theory is the oldest and most significant theory of factor pricing. This is one of the most important, the popular theory, significant theory, oldest theory. It was propounded in 1826 by German economist H.N. von Thuman. T.H. von Thuman, Thuman. It was further developed by Austrian economist Karl Menger, and then French economist Walras, even British economist Wicksteed, Asworth, and American economist Clark has contributed a lot in determination of marginal productivity theory of factor pricing. According to this theory, under perfect competition, prices of the factors is equal to their marginal productivity. If there's a factor, there's a perfect competition, there's a homogeneous product, there's no close substitutes available, there are large number of buyers and sellers, the price, the factors, the services of the factor is equal to their marginal productivity. Factors are demanded because of they have the capability to produce the goods and services. We have already studied why factors are demanded, because of they have the capability to produce goods and services, and this capability to produce the goods and services is called marginal productivity of factors. The capability to produce the goods and services is called marginal productivity of factor. The factor of production is demanded to its because of they have the capacity to produce, they have there's a productivity capacity. To find out the productivity of factor, it is essential to use one more unit of that factor while keeping the supply of order to we assume the supply is constant. As a result of it, whatever increase is made in the total production will mainly due to the use of additional unit of that factor, and this increase in total production is called marginal productivity. Let us explain it in detail. So the marginal productivity theory states, under the perfect competition, we have to assume the price of each factor of production will be equal to its marginal productivity. The price of the factor is determined by the industry. The firm will be employ that number of a given factor at the price is equal to the marginal productivity. In the perfect competition, we have already studied that the prices are determined by the industry. Firms are just price taker, they are not price maker. Prices are determined through the demand and supply forces of the market. So we have to assume that in perfect competition, according to this theory, the price or the earnings of the factor of production tends to equal to the value of its marginal product. Thus, say rent is equal to the value of marginal product of land. Wages are equal to the marginal value of marginal product of labor, and the interest are equal to the value of marginal product of capital, and so on. The new classical economist has applied the same principle of profit maximization, that MC is equal to MR, to determine the factor price. We have already discussed the market structure. Now, marginal productivity theory 12 to explain the following points. The reward of each factor unit is equal to its marginal productivity. This is very important. That the reward paid to the factor of production, whether the land, labor, or capital, is equal to its marginal productivity. Marginal means additional productivity, additional contribution. Reward for each factor of production will be the same in every use, because of we have to assume, or under this marginal productivity theory, we assume that there is a perfect competition. Perfect competition. Now, the marginal productivity theory is an attempt to explain the determination of reward of various factors of production in a competitive market. The market is competitive. A large number of small firms in the market. According to J.P. Clark, because he is the economist who has contributed a lot finalizing the marginal productivity theory of factor pricing. According to him, every factor including entrepreneur, would get remuneration, would get the reward equal to its marginal product. Every factor of production will be paid or get reward equal to its marginal product. By marginal productivity theory of a factor is meant the value of marginal physical product of the factor. Marginal physical product of the factor. Marginal physical productivity, when we express marginal productivity in terms of increase in quantity of output, say goods, it is called marginal physical productivity. Marginal physical productivity may be defined as the addition to total production resulting from employment of one more unit of factor of production, whereas other things being remain constant, we assume. Suppose one labor produce 5 units. When the second labor is employed, the total production may be increased 5 to 9. For example, thus the marginal physical productivity of the second labor will be 9 minus 4 of the unit of the product, and it is worked out by multiplying the price of the output per unit by the units of output. Say the value of marginal product is equal to marginal product MP multiplied by price. VMP, value of marginal product is equal to MP, marginal physical product, multiplied by its price. So we can calculate marginal productivity or through the value of marginal product is equal to marginal product multiplied by the price of that product. Now, the marginal productivity theory, if you see, in the long run under perfect competition, each factor of production will get its remuneration that is equal to marginal revenue productivity, MRP. Marginal revenue product, the price of that product, which is also equal to average revenue product, because of per unit revenue is equal to per unit price of that product. So demand for factor of production, we have already studied in previous slide. that demand for various factor of production is drive demand, not direct demand. The resources do not usually directly satisfy the consumer wants. We do not consume directly the resources, say factor production, whereas in case of commodity we consume directly, that satisfy our wants directly, whereas factor of production, the demand for there is indirect demand, is not direct demand. They are demanded because of these help to producing the goods and services. Why we demand the factor of production? Because of these help in producing goods and services in economy, in a country. An entrepreneur is hiring the factor of production. The role of entrepreneur is hiring the factor of production, say labor, capital, most important, and maybe land also. An individual firm cannot influence the price of factor of production because of imperfect competition. It has to take the ruling price in the market as given. Ruling price means the price which are fixed through demand and supply forces of the market. The demand which is determined through market mechanism, say demand and supply forces of the market, which is fixed by the industry. The firm can employ as many a number of the factor unit as it is as it wishes at the ruling price of the factor. Now, let us explain that what are the assumptions of the marginal productivity theory. Every theory there are some assumptions. So similarly, in case of marginal productivity theory, this theory is based on following assumption: homogeneous factors. In this theory, we assume that all factors of production, they are homogeneous nature. You cannot differentiate one product with another product. We assume that all the units of factors are exactly similar and so can be distributed any to extent. You cannot differentiate one labor with another labor. The capability, the productivity are the same of every factor of production. This we have to assume, or this theory of marginal productivity based on this first important assumption. Second, perfect competition in the market product. We have to assume that there is a perfect competition in the market. Perfect competition means the market where goods are sold are, and the firms are, there's large number of firms and they are producing homogeneous product, and they, according to, we have already discussed in the market structure that MR, margin revenue, and AR of the product will be equal. You cannot differentiate AR with MR because of the homogeneous product. There will be no change in the price of product when its output is increased by the firm. The price of output remains same. The average revenue will be same, margin revenue that will be equal to margin revenue. Third assumption, factors can be substituted. We have to assume, or this theory is based on the assumption that it is assumed that the various factors of production which help in production of a particular commodity can also be substituted for one another. You can easily substitute one product with another product. The production will not affect it. We have to assume that they are perfectly substitutable. We can use more of labor or less of land, or more of labor or less of capital. Maybe output remains same. These factor of production are perfectly substitutable. You can substitute one product with another product. Next is the perfect mobility of the factors. Factor of production are fully mobile. It is assumed that the various factor of production can be moved from one use to another. Fully mobile. Application of law of diminishing returns means as more and more units of factor of production you are assuming, the marginal productivity start diminishing. This theory rests on the assumption that law of diminishing return apply as the organization of the business. Now, perfect mobility of factors we have already discussed, and divisible factors. Different factor of production are divided into small units. You can use the factor of production as per your requirement. They are perfectly divisible. So these are some assumptions. Another, maybe technology remain constant. There is no change in the technique of production. Even we have to assume that there is a full employment. Full employment in the economy means all factor of production are fully employed, means supply of factor is fixed. They are fully employed. There is no unemployment. The factor of production are getting job according, getting services as per their requirement. Now, there are some key concepts when we have to discuss the marginal productivity theory, that marginal physical productivity, we have already discussed that. The first marginal physical productivity may be defined as the additional to total production, resulting from employment of one more unit of production. When you produce the next unit of the production, in the previous slide we have given the example that, say, if one factor produced 5 units and second produced 9, then 9 minus 5, 4 is equal to the marginal productivity, marginal product, additional production. But here we have to assume that other things remain constant. It is measured how many additional unit will be produced by additional 1 unit of input, like material, labors and overhead. The marginal physical product, MPP, of a factor, say for example labor, is the increase in total product of the firm as additional workers and employed by it. Second is the value of marginal product, VMP, value of marginal product, which is the key concept of the theory of marginal product. The second concept is the value of marginal product. If we multiply the marginal product, physical product, MPP, of the factor by the price of the product, we would get the value of marginal product. The marginal physical product, the value of marginal physical product, if we multiply by the price of the product, that will equal to the value of marginal physical product, VMP, value of marginal product, is equal to MPP, marginal physical product, and multiply by AR, its price. Now, marginal revenue product is also known as the marginal value product. Is the marginal revenue created due to an additional of 1 unit of resources? And marginal revenue is the change, or simply you can say marginal revenue is the change in total revenue due to change in quantity produced. Or marginal revenue product is the change in total revenue resulting from an incremental change in quantity of the variable factor of input used. Third one, the marginal revenue product. It is the marginal revenue created by using of one additional unit of resources. MRP used to make critical decisions on business production and determine the optimal level of a resources. The MRP assumes that expenditure on other factors remain unchanged. Under the perfect competition, the VMP, value marginal product, of the factor is equal to its marginal revenue product, which is the addition to the total revenue when some more and more factors are added to the fixed amount of other factors. Or MRP is equal to MPP multiplied MR under perfect competition. So under perfect competition, value marginal product of factor is equal to marginal revenue product of factor. MRP is equal to VMP. Now Let us explain this with the help of this table. Say the first column of this table is solved, the units of labor. We are using labor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The total product, say 5, 9, 12, 14 and 15. Marginal physical product, additional 9, when you change the change the units of labor, say 1 to 2, there is a change in total production. 5 to 9, 9 minus 5 is equal to 4. Similarly, when 2 to 3, the change is 9 to 12, 3, and so on, 2, 1. But the important thing is, in the initial stages, it is higher, and as you are using more and more unit of the labor, total product no doubt is increasing, but the marginal product start decreasing. But because of perfect competition is there, so the price, margin revenue, average revenue remain constant, say 555. There's no change. But marginal revenue product, I have already discussed in previous slide, that can be calculated MPP multiplied by MR. So margin revenue here 5, marginal product say 4. So 4 multiplied by 5 is 20. Similarly, MRP is here 3 and MR is 5. MRP multiplied by, MPP multiplied by MR is equal to marginal MRAP, marginal revenue of average product. MRP, it should be MRP. So 2 multiplied by 5 is 10. Similarly, value of marginal product VMP is MPP multiplied by AR. Because of AR is equal to MR. So here AR is 5, MPP is 4. So this multiplied this. 4 multiplied by 5 is 20. 3 multiplied by 15 is 15. Why? Because of VMP also calculated, we can calculate MPP multiplied by AR. So AR and MR is equal to Y because of there is a homogeneous product, homogeneous factor of production, because of there is a perfect competition in the market. So let us see, according to this theory, reward of each factors of production depends upon the marginal productivity. This is very important. According to the marginal productivity theory, reward or return of each factors of production depends on its marginal productivity. More marginal productivity, maybe high price will pay, high reward will be given. Lesser the marginal productivity, lesser will be given the reward to the factor of production. Therefore, it is necessary to clarify the meaning of marginal productivity. So already we have clarified that if the proportion of other factors of production is fixed and the units of any one of factor are added one by one in production, whatever units produced additionally by variable factor is called marginal physical productivity. When marginal physical productivity is expressed in terms of money through the system of price, it is known as revenue productivity. I'm again repeating, when the physical productivity is expressed in terms of money through the system of price, it is known as the revenue productivity. In other words, the marginal revenue productivity can be obtained by multiplying the units of marginal physical production with market price. When more and more units of a factor are used, the marginal productivity of each additional unit start decreasing. When we use more and more units of factor, the marginal productivity of each additional unit start decreasing. Through table we have already in the previous slide we have discussed. That as more and more units of the factor, variable factor we are using, the marginal productivity of each additional unit start decreasing. So every producer want to make the maximum profit. This is the objective of the producers or of a firm, profit maximization. Therefore, he will continue to employ each factor of production till the price paid to each unit of factor and its marginal productivity are equal. And at the point of the producer will attain the equilibrium. So equilibrium point will be there where the each factor of production, the price paid to each factor of production will be equal to its marginal productivity. Its marginal productivity. So therefore, one hand the producer will get maximum profit, and on the other hand, the factor of production will get return according to their marginal productivity. Simply, the price paid by the producer to the factor will be equal to the its marginal productivity, and that point will be equilibrium of the producer, and that is the point when factor of production will get a return according to their marginal productivity. The theory basically states that the firm employ each factor up to what number where its price is equal to value of marginal product. Thus, wages tend to equal to the value of marginal product of labor. Interest is equal to the value of marginal product of the capital, and land or entrepreneur land is equal to the value of marginal product of the rent is the equal to the value of marginal product of land, and maybe profit is equal to the value of marginal product of the entrepreneurs, and so on. So by equating the value margin product of each factor with its cost, a profit seeking for maximizes its total profits. We can explain even through the diagram in coming slide. So with the reference to determination of the price, labor and wages, the following figures through diagram. The supply of labor is perfectly elastic. We'll explain with the help of this diagram, and the wages is equal to the average wage, that AW, and marginal wage MW. But perfect competition, wage is equal to AW is equal to MW. See, this is average W. Here we have the labor employed. Y-axis we have the wage rate or productivity of the labor. W is we have wages, and AW average wage, where in case of product market we have discussed it AR. So here AR average revenue, in place of AR we have AW average wage, and in place of margin revenue we have already discussed in previous lecture MR, here MW. So because of the market is perfect competition, so AW is equal to MW, and we have studied that where AR is equal to MR, MC cuts MR from below, but here like this one, average revenue product is equal to the price of the factor of production which we are paying, and this is the marginal revenue product. In case of commodity, we have commodity market, we have discussed that AR is equal to MR and MC is equal to AR is equal to MR, and MR is equal to MC, and MC cuts MR from below, but here totally reverse, no doubt. Here ARP is equal to MRP, but MRP cuts ARP from above, and this is the point of equilibrium. Here the producer will get maximum satisfaction, and the price paid to these factors, say we are, because of taking the example of the labor, is equal to its marginal product. This is the equilibrium point. Now see, in perfect competition we know that the prices of the product is determined through the demand and supply of the market forces. Not by the firm is the price taker. The price which is fixed by this is SL, the supply of labor, which is the constant, and this is the demand. Note of wage has the reverse relationship. Higher wages, less will be the demand, and less will be wages, more will be demand. If we are paying higher wages, the demand will be less in case of labor. But when the wage will decrease, demand for labor. But in case of supply, it has the inverse. Now, the point where demand for labor is intersect the supply of labor, this is the equilibrium point. Here, wages will fix OW wage, and this is the equilibrium because of W is equal to here MRP, and this price will accepted by all the firm in case of perfect competition. So firms are in case of price taker, not price maker. Under perfect competition, the number of firms is very large. We know no single firm can influence the market price of the factor products. That's why the prices are they are the price taker, not price maker. Therefore, from the point of view at the firm, the theory indicates how many units of factor it should be demand. And the under perfect competition, price of factors of production, that is wage rate, is determined by the industry or combined forces of the demand and supply we have just discussed in previous slide. Even according to this theory, firm under perfect competition will employ that number of factor of which is its price is equal to the value of margin product. The firm under the perfect competition will employ that number of a factor at which its price is equal to the value of its marginal product. Thus, from the point of view, the firm indicates that how many units of a factor it should be demanded. And that's why it's also called as theory of factor demand. Theory of factor demand. Other things remaining same, as more and more laborer are employed by a firm, their marginal product goes on diminishes. Now see, when you use more and more labor, say 1 to 2, 3, 4, the marginal physical product of labor start diminishing. 8, 10, 6, 4, 2. But because of the perfect competition, the marginal product or average product is 6, say 2, 2, 2, 2 is same. Is no, due to homogeneous factor production. That's why the marginal product AR or margin revenue is the identical. But MRP, margin revenue productivity, we can calculate MPP multiplied by MR. So here MPP is 10, MR2, so 10 multiplied by 2, 20, 8 multiplied by 2, 16, and 6 multiplied by 2, 12, MPP multiplied by MR. So MP here 4, MR2 is equal to 8. And wage rate is 8, 8, 8 because of the homogeneous product. Wage rate we are paying equal, we cannot differentiate, there will be equal wage rate. See, we can explain with the help of this diagram. X-axis we have labor and y-axis we have the MRP or wages, and TD is the demand for labor. This is the wages. Here is the wage rate will be equal to the demand. MRP is wages. As higher the wages, the labor 1. As wages decrease, the demand for labor increases, and simultaneously we can say that as you consume more, use more and more labor, the marginal product start diminishing. Inverse relationship between labor and wages. Higher the wages, lesser we use the labor. As wages decreases, say 20 to 16, 12, 8, 4, the demand for labor increases in the market. Now, the marginal productivity theory has some limitations, or it is criticized on the following grounds. The theory is based on the unrealistic assumptions. Say perfect competition there. Say there are a lot of assumptions. Say the theory is based on a very wrong assumption, that is units of factor production are homogeneous. How it is possible that all the factor production say all the labor has equal capacity is not possible. All factor of production say capital cannot be a homogeneous in nature. So this is the one of the important criticism or wrong assumptions is there. The fact that neither all land or nor labor or not capital or even the entrepreneurs can be identical, cannot be similar. There will be difference. Production cannot be perfectly substitute. How can you substitute one product with another? Sorry, one factor of production with another. It's not possible. It's also wrong assumption that factors of production are close substitutes to one another. You can substitute one factor with another. This is not possible always. Labor is not perfect substitute of capital. How is it possible that you can substitute capital with labor or labor with capital and vice versa? It's not possible. So it is also the case with land in relation with other factor of production. Not possible that in place of land you can use more labor or more capital. No, it is not possible. That's why this has been criticized. The law of proportion of returns. Again, the theory says that this is again wrong theory. Assumption that law of diminishing returns applies in the business. It's not possible. Is this not a fact that when there is a proportionate increase in factors of the production, the law of diminishing return is held? This is not possible. In case of businesses, that as you increase the labor or increase the capital, the output their productivity start diminishing. Not possible because they maybe improve their skills, they may become more efficient, more skillless. Wage cuts are not determined the demand. According to this theory, employee is to be increased, wages should be lowered. Means if you decrease the wage, the labor can be increased. Not possible. Higher the wage, lower the demand. Lower the wage, higher demand. This is not possible. According to J.M. Keynes, disagrees with this. Keynes disagrees with this view and says that this may be true in case of individual firm or industry, but it is wrong when it is applied to aggregate or effective demand. Aggregate or effective demand. One-sided theory. Many economists say that this is the one-sided theory. The marginal productivity theory is also criticized on the ground that it is assumes that the supply of factor or factors are fixed, while in reality the remuneration paid to a factor does not influence its supply. Does not influence its supply. So as the theory approaches, the problem only from the side of demand neglects and affects on the supply, therefore it cannot be accepted as true. Even static theory, marginal productivity is static, neglects the problem of technical change. They assume that the constant technology, it is therefore static theory. So now, what is the modern theory of factor production? The modern theory of factor pricing, basically not production, but the modern theory of factor pricing. The modern theory of factor pricing was developed as an improvement of the marginal productivity theory of factor pricing. This theory, considering both the demand side and supply side, determine the price. Demand side means if factor of production has derived indirect demand based upon the contribution of production, the productivity of the factor. More productivity means more demand, less productivity means less demand. The demand for factor of production depends on the demand for goods produced using the factor. For an individual firm, the margin revenue product of a factor production is demand curve, where a factor price can be determined on the basis of factor demand from the industry as a whole. When perfect competition prevails, the summation of MRP curves of all firm and industry gives the demand curve of the industry. See, this is the firm margin revenue product and this is the demand industry. So modern theory says that the demand curve will be downward sloping. Modern theory of factor pricing, Second part, supply, because of both consider supply and demand. Supply of the factor production is depend on the price of factors and some other factors also. Supply of some factors of production is constant in the short run and may have a backward bending even when there is an increase in price of the factor. For example, supply of labor has backward bending. When wages rise beyond a certain level, it will be backward bending. The following figure can be explained the equilibrium of factor production. In modern theory, it's very simple. We have the demand and supply prices. We know that this is the supply curve, supply of labor, this is the demand for labor. And the point where demand for labor intersects the supply of labor, this is the point of equilibrium. And here wages will be fixed. As demand, as if you increase the price of wages, there will be reduction in the demand, and there is some market forces will be reduce the price and the to increase the demand. So you have to decrease the price, and if there is a decrease in price, then supply will be reduced. There will be shortage of the supply. Here is excess supply, and to increase the supply, we have to increase the price. So the ways of prices. So this E will be the equilibrium point. The market forces will be here, and this is the point of determination of the wages or the price of the factor of production. So demand and supply play a very important role as per the modern theory of marginal productivity. The point where demand for labor or demand for factor or supply of factor will intersect each other, that will be the point of determination of the price of factor of production, whether land, labor, capital. According to modern theory, under perfect competition, the price of factor production is determined the level where supply and demand of factor is equal. And the pricing is a realized guide to maximize the profit to the firm, where firm will get maximum profit with regard to input under the given condition of the market. However, theory is also, they say, assume that full employment. So this is the point of the criticism. Let us now summarize. So in the whole this module, we have discussed in the first part theory of factor pricing. So hopefully you are able to know that what is factor pricing. Factor pricing dealing with the determination of share of prices of the four factor of production, namely land, labor, and capital or entrepreneurs. We have discussed in detail. Marginalist economists argue that the factor price is a function of demand for final product, and so that imputed from the that finished product we have already discussed. The margin productive theory we have discussed in detail. It states that under the perfect competition, price of each factor of production will be equal to the margin productivity. The price which we are paying or we have to pay the factor of production, that is equal to its marginal productivity. And the price of factor is determined by the industry, not by the firm. The firm will employ that number of given factors at which the price is equal to the marginal productivity. And lastly, we have also analyzed the theory of marginal productivity, modern theory of marginal productivity, point of view of the firm and industry, and an overview of modern theory of marginal productivity. So with this, thank you very much.